What's your name?
Jon Stamford.
And where do you live, John?
I live in Tunbridge Wells, have done for the last 30 odd years.
And how old are you now?
65.
And how long have you had Parkinson's?
Good question. 16, 17 years? Something of that order. I've actually stopped counting, to be honest.
So you've had Parkinson's a while. How have the symptoms differed from when you were first diagnosed to now?
At the very beginning, hardly any symptoms, to be honest. A little bit of tremor. Mainly symptoms that I just sort of put down to early middle age at that point. They got progressively worse. My principal symptom is really tremor more than anything. And I had surgery which has alleviated that almost completely now, about a year ago.
So you have an interesting story, which is you used to be a neuroscientist researching Parkinson's, and then you got diagnosed with Parkinson's.
Yes, it's one of those coincidences in life that you can probably do without. I had a research lab, yes, at the London Hospital in Whitechapel, and we worked on the brain dopamine systems. We were interested in the control of dopamine release and all sorts of aspects of it, principally in the context of Parkinson's. And then I was myself diagnosed with it.
And despite being diagnosed, I guess you didn't realise that you had Parkinson's.
I didn't at the time, no. I was actually very, very poor. It's ironic, really, because I actually taught in the medical school, and Parkinson's was one of the subjects which I used to lecture on. And yet, despite that, didn't recognise the symptoms in myself. I think partly it was just simply I was convinced that it had to be something else, just because it was such a ridiculous situation that you should actually have the very condition you've been researching.
Yes, it's remarkable, isn't it? And what's the worst thing you found about having Parkinson's over the last 16, 17 years?
I suppose the worst thing is just knowing that it's incurable. And that it will get progressively worse. I would say is probably to be secure in that knowledge is actually quite a depressing place to be, really.
Yes, that's one of the things I find hard is just knowing that it only gets worse every year, and that you have to sort of recalibrate your expectations every time it takes another slight downturn. Have you had any positive things that have come out of having Parkinson's?
The main positive is meeting people. I've always been a kind of reticent sort of person, quite shy, I suppose, really. I've met vastly more people through Parkinson's than I would otherwise have done. So yes, and these are generally pretty remarkable people most of the time.
And you write a blog as well. Do you find it's sort of stimulated your creative output?
I'd like to say I was a creative type beforehand, but I don't know that's the case. It has provided the stimulus to write, certainly, but it's had a wider effect. I write on subjects going some way beyond Parkinson's.
And what advice would you give to somebody who is sort of recently diagnosed?
Firstly, you want to get as much information as you reasonably can, but you also want to avoid the lunatics. And I'm sorry to say there are plenty of them. People who have these sort of what I call one-trick ponies, people who are advocating bizarre treatments from monkey glands or whatever, this kind of nonsense. And it's quite difficult initially to distinguish between those that are credible and those that are not. On the other hand, you do need to get familiar with your condition because it's going to be with you for a while. So make sure you try and get as much as possible reliable information, I think. That would be my advice. I always say you've got to engage with your Parkinson's because it's sure as hell going to engage with you. So it's a good lesson, I think, to learn.
Have you heard of something called Laugh-A-Dopa?
I have, yes. Only a matter of minutes ago. No, I have, and it's not something I necessarily have been part of, but for some it works, so...
Take it with a sense of humour.
Yes.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you. That was brilliant.
You're welcome.
If you're interested in finding out more about Parkinson's, subscribe for a new video every Thursday.